Welcome back. It is the Beyond Emissions podcast, brought to you by Solagent, your clean energy solution provider. Go to solagent.net right now today and join our dealer network. We're here to empower you to offer clean energy solutions around the country and around the globe. We've got the most excellent partners available at our fingertips to have access to the tools and the resources and the right solutions for you and your customers. So join us today as a part of our clean energy revolution at solagent.net. That's solagent.net. Welcome back to the Beyond Emissions podcast. I'm Josh Brum here with Solagent. We're so thankful every week that you join us at the Solagent YouTube channel, also as well at Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, and more. It's great when you have windshield time on your way to the job. Rather than listening to some of the critical nature that's going on in social media and the news, put on something between your ears to feed what's between your ears. That's right. The experts we have and the folks that come on this program, engineers, experts from around the world, different stakeholders in our clean energy economy, all coming on the Beyond Emissions podcast to help you grow your value and your education. We like to provide a free education, if you will, in all the areas of clean energy. That's what we're here for. The more educated you are, the more valuable you're going to be for your customers, your teammates, your business, and yourself, including all your partners. Like Einstein once said, don't seek to be successful, seek to be valuable. And that's what we're trying to give you here every single week at the Beyond Emissions podcast. Thanks so much for joining us every single week. We have a very special guest on the program today. This gentleman, he's been part of a family. I'll let him tell the story, but he's been part of a family. And I feel like I'm part of his family. And by extension, if you're working with us here at Solagent or City Electric Supply, you're a part of his family as well. We're going to learn about the adventure of the family that started City Electric Factory, then became City Electric Supply, now as a part of the portfolio of clean energy solutions available to customers around the world, the Labora Group. So we're excited that he's here today. Thomas Hartland Mackie, welcome to the Beyond Emissions podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Likewise, I met you at the City Electric Supply headquarters in Dallas, Texas, and it's amazing. That's really where we need to get started. I know where we're going. It's excited where we're going. It's a very exciting adventure we're on, making a difference in our world, our economy, people's lives, the environment. We are a part of a clean energy revolution that is going to change history for the better, in my opinion. But a lot of that is very family driven. Your grandfather really started all of this. Well, your grandfather and your grandmother, right? They were stationed next to one another, but an amazing story. The start of your business and where we're headed with this clean energy revolution. It really started with family, right, Thomas?
That's right. Yeah. So so we're a third generation family owned business now, and our holding company is called Labora. But it all started with a company called City Electrical Factors, which was a wholesale distributor and still is a wholesale distributor of electrical materials in the UK. And so my grandfather went into the electrical industry at 16 when he left school. And other than 4 years in the Air Force during the Second World War, where he met my grandmother, she was a radio operator in the Women's Auxiliary Forces. He stayed in that industry until he passed away at 89 years old. And when I say he stayed in it, he literally worked until the day before he passed away. He had a huge passion for the industry, for the business, and for the business family, the city family that he created over those years. And so he joined the industry. He worked for the largest electrical distributor in the UK at that time, a company called the GEC. And they were sort of the dominant player in the UK back then. And so he worked there for 16 to 18 until he joined the Air Force, and then he went back when he was about 22 and worked there for about another 6-7 years. And then in 1951, he had become pretty disillusioned with sort of some of the corporate policy and bureaucracy that existed in large corporations, and particularly the one that he was working at. And so he really had this vision to, either set up or acquire a business that he could create a culture and a working environment that he would have wanted to work in. And so he, after many months of looking, came across a business that he could afford to buy, or at least buy 50% of. And basically, it was this almost bankrupt electrical distributor called City Electrical Factors. They were operating out of a 2-story, 1,200 square foot converted horse stable on a back street of Coventry, England. But the value and the potential that he saw was that they had supplier relationships with most of the key brands in the UK electrical space at that point in time. And so my grandfather's feeling was, I have customer relationships, I have the ability to sell, I know how to do business, but I really need access to product. And so if I can acquire a 50% stake in this business, it gives me sort of that foothold. And so, in a true entrepreneurial story, he and my grandmother, after I'm sure a lot of deliberation, made the commitment to invest 300 pounds. So, today's conversion before inflation, that's, like about $400. Obviously, inflation adjusted, a lot more money. But for them at the time, it was literally all the cash they had. So I think they kept 2 weeks worth of cash in their bank account to be able to pay bills and their mortgage. They had 3 kids at that point in time. And so they really risked, took a massive risk to go into the industry. And then, for 9 years until my grandfather had the opportunity to open his second location, he was really a jack of all trades, as most, small entrepreneurs have to be. So he worked 6 days a week in the branch, and then on Sundays he did his own accounts so that he didn't have to, hire and pay a bookkeeper. And they took one family vacation a year where they would basically drive for the day to Blackpool to the seaside. But other than that, he, either spent his time at home with his kids when he had the opportunity, but mostly he spent his time at the branch growing the business. Was singularly focused on not just making the business successful, but making it a place that really talented people wanted to come and work, and a place that was so customer orientated that it really just delighted customers with service. I mean, at the end of the day, in the distribution business, it's pretty much all about customer service. I mean, at the end of the day, in electrical distribution, it's a very established market. Most competitors have roughly the same product offering. They can, sell at roughly the same pricing. So it really comes down to who can build strong customer relationships and who can really take care of that customer. And so that was the foundation that the business was set up on. And then also this real sense of ownership with our city family, right? Bringing people on who, although they may not have had shares in the business, really treated the business like it was their own. He put in profit-related pay back in 1951, which was a pretty radical thing at the time. And so what that created was this just culture of incredible ownership by our team, who really spend every dollar, every pound, every euro, depending on what market they're in, as if it's their own, right? And they protect it like it's their own. They invest it like it's their own. They take care of the customer like it's their own, like it's their own business. They take care of their employees like it's their own business, right? And their team there. And so it's just a really special culture that was created.
And at a time, Thomas Hartland Mackie with us today on the Beyond Emissions podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. We appreciate you being here. Thomas, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us as well. The culture of the country. We're talking 1951 when he's instituting profit sharing and opportunities for employees to actually enjoy some of the company's success as well. I mean, real shockers at the time. But the culture at the time, my grandmother, she got firebombed out of her house by the Blitzkriegs from the Nazis, from the Luftwaffe. And she told me stories of having to run out of her house and run to the shelter and bombs blowing up the house with glass flying everywhere. I mean, literally the UK especially was really the last island, if you will, the last vestige of hope. The Lend-Lease program, we did everything to support the war effort up until we actually entered the war as well on the side with the United States and the rest of the allies. But really the tip of the spear of holding back the power of Nazi aggression was the United Kingdom, right? It was Great Britain. And this is really the genesis of this company. Your grandmother and your grandfather, they were along with everybody else in the midst of this struggle of good and evil. And it's kind of interesting how that correlates to the landscape of our geopolitical situation today as well, in a sense. Right, Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very challenging time, obviously, and so my grandfather enlisted in the Air Force after spending 2 years in the Home Guard. So while he was working for the GEC, he was he wasn't 18 yet, so he wasn't old enough to fully enlist. But at 16, he could join the Home Guard, and he was a very, very open and honest guy. So he always joked, if I'm honest, I probably joined the Home Guard because I thought it was pretty cool to be able to walk around with a machine gun in a uniform when I was 16 years old. But he quickly realized that, the main job there was cleaning up bomb sites. And so he would, tell me the story of the first time he went in to clean up a bomb site. And it was a theater that had been bombed in the Birmingham area. And he said he walked in, and what he saw there just literally brought him to collapse on the ground, and he just couldn't pull himself together. He just couldn't even help in that first cleanup effort. And so the things that people were exposed to at that point in time, at that kind of age, was just incredible. And after doing that for 2 years, he said, I just felt so compelled that I needed to enlist and be a part of trying to bring all of this to an end. And so he ended up doing 2 tours of duty. He was a navigator on the Lancasters, and he was on the raid that sustained the highest percentage plane loss in all of the Second World War. So we always say as a family we are so lucky and so blessed in so many ways, but probably most blessed for the fact that we're actually here in the first place, because so many people didn't make it back from those tours, and he was able to make it through 2. And then my grandmother had a different path. So she, my grandfather came from what I would, describe as sort of a comfortable, working class family, working class background. His father had started as a suit maker and a shirt maker, and then had, over the years built a small business. And whereas my grandmother, she ran away from home at a very young age. And she decided to enlist in the military because she had holes in her shoes and she couldn't afford a new pair of shoes. And so she felt like government issued boots was a pretty sensible approach. And so she enlisted and became a radio operator in the Women's Auxiliary Forces. And they met at a squadron dance for one of the RAF squadrons that my grandfather was in, and the rest is history. But yeah, I definitely think that obviously the experiences that generation had, which fortunately, are things that most recent generations in the Western world have not had to experience. I think brought a completely different sense of, strength and determination and character. And I think a lot of that certainly played into sort of the determination and risk taking that was needed to get the business off the ground.
Yeah. And people love working in this type of a culture that was born out of those efforts, both those post-war efforts in building this company. It was more than just building a company. It was building a family, growing a family. And that's exactly what it's like to work with your team. We love working with your team at CES, for example, here in America. Of course, we're here at Sologent, and we have our sister company CGen as well over in Europe, the UK, and in South Africa. Phenomenal how business is really pushing in the direction of clean energy. I have a friend who works in the oil and gas business, And people would be blown away how much off-grid solar batteries, et cetera, are used in that industry. Like even dirty industries are going clean in a sense. At the end of the day, having energy independence and not having this centralized, monopolized source of energy to where everybody's participating together. What are your thoughts on that? For our environment and also our economy. I remember mentioning, what does beyond emissions mean to you when I first met you? And your answer was absolutely correct. We're not going to get rid of all emissions. That's not the goal. But clean energy, how can we get beyond dirty emissions in a sense? Maybe should be the more apropos statement. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things that got us, so excited about this industry and obviously brought us to the point of, being fortunate enough to acquire both CGen and Soligent, was really the fact that, in our view, and I think this is pretty undebatable, human prosperity and energy consumption are completely intertwined with each other. So if you look at how the lives of people have improved, particularly over the last 100 or so years, but throughout human history, it's really been tied to consuming more energy. Now, the challenge with that obviously is balancing that with emissions, CO2 emissions, and other issues that have come with some forms of energy production and generation. And I would say, I don't think it's possible to flip a switch tomorrow, or in the next year, or maybe even 5 years or 10 years, right? But this transition is really important that it takes place. But it's clear that we are consuming more energy, and we will likely continue to consume more energy as a world, right? We still have more than 1 billion people who live in serious poverty around the world. Fortunately, that's been, reducing significantly as a percentage of the world's population over the last, 50, 100 years. And I think the trends are pretty conclusive that is continuing, which is fantastic. But that also will mean more energy consumption by that group of people, and we should be, celebrating the fact that that's happening. On top of that, we've got what I describe as the electrification of the world. So, whether that's electric vehicles, whether that's gas boilers turning into electric ground and air source heat pumps. Obviously the rise of AI and all of the data centers and power demands that are going to come with that. So you have all of these things converging, which are going to mean we need just a tremendous amount more electricity generation, but we need to balance that with the impact that has, on the planet. And so, solar, I think, is a really important part of that solution. It's not going to be the sole answer, but it's going to be a critical piece of that. I've been a huge believer in nuclear energy for a long time. It looks like that's probably also starting to become more in favor in many parts of the world that it has been. And so I think there's going to be a combination of different forms of power generation that are going to play a really important part as we move through the next 20, 30, 40 years. And we look to produce more power, but with less impact. And so at the end of the day, what we're really fortunate with is, we have this amazing nuclear reactor in the sky, which is, the sun in our solar system. And every year it puts down 10,000 times more energy onto the surface of the earth than humanity consumes. And so the reality is the energy exists out there. It's just how do we economically efficiently turn that energy into, stored energy and electricity and all of the things that we require to, power our lives and to power the continued development of society. And I think the good news is those trends are really in place. I mean, if you look at the economics of solar energy, it wasn't that long ago that it was, 5-7 times more expensive than the next closest form of power generation. And so at that point, it's very challenging, right? It requires a lot of subsidies or a lot of, real passion for somebody to, take themselves off the grid and do something in a more sustainable way. But with those economics, it's very hard for it to become mainstream. But fortunately today, and it's obviously debatable, but it's getting towards the cheapest form of power generation. And of course, there's a lot of variables in there, so it's very hard to make that statement. But what's hard to argue with is it's the only form of power generation that has had a material reduction in cost over the last 10 years, right? And so if that trend, even if it moderates, if it continues, where it's going to be in 5 to 10 years' time, particularly with battery storage becoming more and more economical, obviously that's going to help, solar tremendously, both from a payback period perspective, but also for a replacement of, baseload power. And so I think it's just this incredibly exciting time. And, with basically circa 3% of rooftops in the Western world having, solar installations on them, and only about a third of those having battery storage systems, it means we're very much in the early days, right? I mean, this is sort of internet circa the 1990s. So it's an incredibly exciting place to be. It seems like that all of the trends are pointing in the right direction. We're very excited to play, a small part in the proliferation of this form of power generation, and service obviously great installers that are out there in the market, our customers and prospective customers, and help them get these on rooftops and get them in front of the end user, which is super exciting.
Exactly. Our job is to empower you folks. So if you're listening right now, you own a solar company, you're an installer, you've come to the right place. We have everything in place for you to have success. Whether it's the financing, whether everything that goes on the roof and under the roof. We have all the solar panel options that you can choose from. We have racking. We have electrical balance of systems. We have the best inverters. We have a myriad of phenomenal energy storage options, which we can pick the right one for you without bias, making sure that we base it on the right storage solution specifically for your customer. Everything's customized, but that's one of the great things about us here at City Electric Supply, at Solagent, at CGen, in this family of companies with the Labora Group. Thomas Mackie with us today on the Beyond Emissions podcast. It makes us feel amazing that we can come to you, the customer, and actually have a solution. We don't have to go, oh, darn it, we can't help there, we can't help there. You've created, or your team has created, a situation where we really truly can be a single source solution for our customers, right, Thomas?
Yeah, that's right. So we really aim to be a turnkey solution for the customer. So our goal is always we are focused on the installer. So if you look at us in electrical distribution, we've been focused on the installer since 1951, and our job is to provide you with the services and solutions, products, et cetera, that you need to make, your customers, your end users, your customers happy, and to also make your lives easier, right? So what we are constantly trying to do is think about service. How do we make sure that we deliver what you need from us on a daily basis? We stay consistent, and always we're thinking about how do we make that better, right? I mean, one of our biggest beliefs in business is, just because we've been successful, that does not mean that we will be successful in the future. So we're constantly looking at our businesses and saying, how can we be better? And after 70 plus years in electrical distribution now, there's still hundreds and likely thousands of ways we need to continue to improve our business. And we find that super exciting, right? The reality is the job is never done. The needs of the customers are constantly evolving and changing. The product offering is evolving and improving. And so, we want to provide you with everything we can, and we want to stay humble and ensure that we're constantly listening and constantly reacting.
Thank you so much for being here today. I know you're a very busy gentleman, so appreciate it. Thomas Mackie from the Labora Group, CGen, CEF, and CES, City Electric Supply here in the United States, and of course us here at Solagent, your clean energy distributor. We have your clean energy solutions available. Go to solagent.net to find out more. Thomas, thank you so much for being on the program, frankly, on your program, really. We're here as a part of your family. So thank you for supporting us here at the Beyond Emissions podcast and our amazing team here at Sologent, behind the scenes, etc. We appreciate all that you do to support us in our effort to bring these clean energy solutions to the market. And thank you. God bless you and your family. And thank you so much for your support and leadership, Thomas.
Josh, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to join you. Thanks for having me on.
Have a great day. Thomas Mackie from the Labora Group, CGen, Sologent, City Electric Supply, CEF as well. All a part of that family. Amazing, the story. I mean, we're not just a group of companies making transactions. There is a real story. You go to the City Electric Supply in Dallas, and they actually have the original. It's like a farmhouse. You go in, and bricks are holding up a door that his grandfather, Thomas Mackie, used as his original desk. It's the total mock-up, if you will, of the original. So when you go there, you get this sense like the humble beginnings, and it still remains. You see on the wall when you walk down the hallways at the headquarters for City Electric Supply in Dallas, you see on the wall talking about integrity. That is the cornerstone of what we're doing here to provide you with the clean energy solutions to power our future. Thanks so much for joining us today. So glad to have Thomas Mackie on the program. More Beyond Emissions episodes coming up. Would you like to check out experts from around the world? Learn. Free value, free education, constantly learning about solar energy storage, the ins and outs, new technologies. Where's our industry going? We have experts from around the world on the Beyond Emissions podcast on a regular basis, so check it out. Again, Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, and also as well at the Sologent YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, and comment down below and tell us, be a part of that conversation. Tell us your thoughts about how we're going to create a world that is beyond emissions. Thanks for joining us again for the Beyond Emissions podcast. I'm Josh Brum, Energy Storage Manager and host of the Beyond Emissions podcast for Sologent, your clean energy solution provider.
We at Sologent are incredibly excited to announce our partnership with GivePower. Well, we wouldn't be here today talking to you about GivePower if it wasn't for our partners, LoanPal. They've been with GivePower since the beginning. Their contribution has given water and light to countless people across the globe. We are truly inspired by LoanPal's dedication to the cause. Something LoanPal said really strikes a chord regarding GivePower, that this is something that's more than money. It's what makes making money more worthwhile. In a lot of ways, that's synonymous with what we're doing here at Sologent.
Here's how you can help.
What we've decided to do is compound LoanPal's contribution by donating to GivePower on every order paid via our direct pay program through LoanPal. That's right. Every time your company uses your LoanPal portal to pay Sologent for material, 5 people get clean drinking water for a full year.
Together we're stronger.
Together, we can choose to be extraordinary by giving to people who live outside our reach. To us, this means a lot.
Sologent's purpose meets GivePower's mission. Join the impact. Sologent, Solar Engine. SolarEngineSolutions.com. Go there to find out more.